Yo, Philly 254 living life. Back at it. So we're doing a review today of another Bluetooth controller, the 8bitDo Bluetooth Ultimate Bluetooth controller. So how well does it work? How well does it stack up to other Bluetooth controllers? What are my thoughts on it? Let's jump into it and we're gonna get right on it. First things first. When you open up the box, what do you get out of there? Get your USB Type-C, get your dock. Yes, it does come with a dock. The controller, of course. Get yourself a nifty little carrying case. And of course, a big old pamphlet. Multiple languages and all that fun stuff, so you'll figure out how to read something on there. How well does it actually perform? So before we get into that, let's talk about this. How well does it feel? Feels good in the hand. Feels good in the hand. 22 hours of battery life, which is pretty dang good. The analog sticks feel nice and responsive. They are very responsible. Responsive. I didn't have any issues with drift when I was playing it or was trying it out. The actual D-pad could be better. It's better than Steam Deck's D-pad. I've mentioned that. As much as I love the Steam Deck, its D-pad is kind of weird and wonky when playing fighting games. This one, I felt a little bit of that, but definitely not the worst or anything. The buttons feel nice and clicky. Has all your standard buttons on there, plus a couple of extra on the back. Little, I guess you call them flaps. I don't know. Little extra ones on the back. Has a USB Type-C connection here, so if you want to wire in, of course you wouldn't charge directly. Has your mode switches and whatnot. This is the actual Bluetooth button to pair it or turn it on or whatnot. This start button is good for, it says on the Switch it does take screenshots. I'm not sure if it does on the Steam Deck. I have to double check and see, so double check on that. Has your actual start and select buttons, and then has your profile buttons, which you can switch to different profile layouts or whatnot on the actual controller. And then these little, I don't know if you can see them, little lights right here. They actually indicate your first, second, third, and fourth player, which is pretty neat, pretty cool that they put that in there. Now, I don't know if I mentioned, but it does have some grippies, by the way. I think I did mention that. It does definitely have some grippies. Feels nice and it's not going anywhere. Not going anywhere. You can get frustrated as you want. It ain't going anywhere. My issue though is, biggest issue I have with it is the button layout. If you notice, I'm gonna put it down so you can see YXBA. This actually mimics the button layout of the Switch. So if you play the Switch, you feel right at home. And this controller is kind of marketed towards being compatible with the Switch, along with Windows and any like Bluetooth device, like your phone or Steam Deck or whatnot. But most controllers kind of mimic the layout of the Xbox controller. This is the Steel Series, and if you notice, which is kind of hard to see on this one, so it's not probably a good example. I'll do it with the actual Xbox controller. If you notice, it has XYAB instead of YXBA. So if you're really used to how, I guess, the general layout that most controllers follow, which is the Xbox layout, it can be a little confusing. You have to make some adjustments in whatever game you're playing. I did when I was testing it out in Street Fighter 5. Had to switch some things around so that way because I don't really need to look at the buttons. It's just more they do different things because they're obviously different buttons. I don't need to know which button is Y, which button is A, kind of thing. But I did have to make some adjustments inside of Street Fighter 5 so that way what should have been my, I guess you could say, my hand memory and finger memory of what I feel should be X is now Y. I had to kind of switch it around to where now it kind of correlates to what this controller does. So that's my biggest thing with it. All right, now as far as the actual dock, the dock is pretty cool, and that's because when I first got this controller, I placed it on the dock so it can charge, right? After I took it off the dock, after it charged for a little while, took it off the dock, it immediately went into pairing mode. I didn't have to put it there, it immediately went to pairing mode, which is pretty neat. So I immediately grabbed my Steam Deck, found it on the Steam Deck's Bluetooth screen, paired it, we were good to go. I think I did have to power or restart my Steam Deck. It seemed like even though it paired, it didn't recognize the controller at first. I did a quick restart of the Steam Deck. It was fine after that. So I will note that. As far as what else is going on here, it says it's ultimate Bluetooth controller, but it also has another function, which is wireless 2.4. Inside of here, it has a little dongle. You can use that to connect to your PC, theoretically your Steam Deck as well. And you can kind of game that way. Technically, wireless is a bit better than Bluetooth, less latency or whatnot. I didn't notice any latency while I was playing on Bluetooth, so you know I'm pretty good with that. I'm pretty good at Bluetooth as it is. The way actual buttons feel, they are, even though they're not, I don't like the layout of the face buttons, but they do feel nice and responsive, real clicky, none sticks or anything like that. So that's definitely a good thing. Same thing with the back buttons. Although I did notice with the way I grip the controller, I was pressing the back buttons accidentally. Fortunately, none of the games I was testing it out had anything mapped to them, automatically mapped to the back buttons. So that may be something if you plan on using them and you have something mapped to them. You may, just playing the game, you may accidentally press them a few times with your fingers. So that's kind of a thing. Just kind of FYI on that one. As far as the little carrying case that comes with it, it's kind of neat. You kind of throw your controller in there, possibly your dock too. Well, the dock looks kind of big, maybe not the dock, but throw your controller in there. It has a couple of pockets inside the case. Nice shiny zippers, as you can see, blinging and all that stuff. But it also has a little extra zipper on the front. I guess possibly you can throw your charger in there, because you don't need the dock to charge it. You can just charge it directly to the back. So that's definitely a thing. So it will just FYI for those who didn't catch it, it will connect with Bluetooth, wireless, and directly with an actual USB Type C cable. So FYI on that. Now, the one thing I will say, mostly, a lot of times when I say it comes with a little documentation, it's instruction manual, throw it away. Don't worry about it. This one, I would worry about it, because on this documentation, which you can see I tore it, because it shows how much I care about documentation sometimes. It has a little it has a little code, QRL code. You scan that code, it takes you to their website. On the website, it kind of has some further instructions on how to actually utilize the turbo mode on it. So by default, this little star button is like on the Switch is a screenshot button, but you can also modify it to where it turns off and turns on the turbo mode. So you press Y and it just press Y so many times in a row for you. You know what I'm saying? So that's definitely a thing. Also, these controllers, they do up their firmware on the controller. So if anytime you feel like, and not just this particular one I had no issues, but I saw some reviews on some of the other ones, and some people said they had some analog drift going on. They updated the firmware, analog drift was gone. So you want to keep your firmware updated. That way it kind of keeps any bugs or whatever the controller may have in check. FYI. Is this controller a buy or a pass? It kind of depends, man. Me, I come from the Xbox side of things. I did have a Switch once before. I never really played it that much. So, and even on the Switch, the button layouts being reversed was always kind of weird to me. So, if you're using the Xbox side of things, it can be a little jarring. You may have to make some adjustments within the actual game. But other than that, everything else feels great. It's really up to you. How do you feel about that? Me personally, I don't like making adjustments to every game I play. So, because sometimes I'm using my controller, sometimes I'm using the Steam Deck's inbuilt controller, So, and there's two different types of setups. It's set up two different ways. I don't feel like making those adjustments every time. I guess technically with the Steam Deck, you can kind of go to a controller profile and switch around. But that's, like I said, it's still more work, man. I wouldn't personally purchase this on my own, just if I just wanted a controller. I'd grab a SteelSeries or something, Like I said, if you're real cool with that, and all the other benefits kind of outweigh that for you, yeah, go ahead and buy it. Now, if you're using this along with like a Switch, that's a buy all day, every day. Buy this, purchase this. It's a really good controller. Feels real good in the hands. Takes care of everything. Again, if you're playing a Switch along with the Steam Deck, This does not matter. Actually, it's better for you because now you don't have to switch back and forth, because you was probably already having to switch back and forth between the Switch's controllers layout and the Steam Decks. Now you don't even have to do that anymore. You're good to go. So this is actually right up your alley. So if you're playing the Switch and the Steam Deck, that's definitely a buy. If you're playing anything else in the Steam Deck, it's kind of up to you how much you really feel like dealing with all this. It's up to you on that one. For me, it would be personally be a pass, but it's up to you. This thing is technically on Amazon for $69.99. Every now and then it goes on sale, just FYI. I will put a link in the description in the first pinned comment. But other than that, it's a pretty solid controller. Other than this little part right here, it's a pretty solid controller. I do like it. I I won't use it too much because it's kind of a problem. I did see they have a straight up only wireless. I guess it has no Bluetooth set into it at all, which actually does have the more traditional Xbox layout, I suppose. So I may grab that and kind of do a review on that and see how well that works. So let me know if that's kind of something you would like to see. And as always, if you like more Steam Deck news, walkthroughs, gameplay, lives, tutorials, like and subscribe. Cruise through the playlist. And I'm out.